Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for this interview with Scott Moore from Kidango. We're going to wait a few minutes for people to join. We'll start at 1:05. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to welcome you all to our interview with Scott Moore from Kidango. We're waiting for people to join. We'll start in 2 minutes. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Patricia Lozano, and I'm the Executive Director of Early Edge California. Kidango invited me today to interview Scott Moore about what they're doing during the coronavirus. Before I start the interview, I'm going to talk about a little bit about Scott, introduce him, and then we'll go ahead and start the interview. So Scott brings over more than 20 years of education policy and management experience at Kidango. He used to work at Early Edge California as a chief policy advisor, and he has helped lead the expansion of preschool access to over 170,000 children each year. In 2014, Scott served as the senior fellow at the Goldman School of Public Policy at UC Berkeley. In 2011, he was appointed by the governor, Arnold Schwarzenegger, to be executive director of the California Early Learning Advisory Council. Scott received his BA in political science from UCLA and his MBA from the Kellogg School of Management at Northwestern, and he has taken early childhood education courses at the Pacific Oaks College. Now I'm going to ask Scott to talk a little bit about Kidango before we go and talk about what has happened since COVID-19. Hi, so go ahead, Scott.
Thank you, Patricia, and thanks for joining us today and moderating this conversation. I want to welcome everyone and thank you on Giving Tuesday, May 5th, Cinco de Mayo. But also Teacher Appreciation Week. Want to give a shout out to all teachers out there. Many of them are not in classrooms, but some of them are. And certainly some of our preschool teachers and childcare caregivers are at some of our emergency childcare centers right now, serving kids of essential workers. So whether you're at home doing distance learning or you're in classrooms, just wanted to say how appreciative we are of your dedication and commitment to children and families. So Kidango, we are the largest childcare and preschool organization in the Bay Area. We serve 4,000 children, mostly low income. And we get primarily funding from the California Department of Education and then the Federal Office of Head Start and Early Head Start. We've been around for a little over 40 years now. So we've been a part of the Bay Area community a long time. And we are proud to, provide high quality early learning for the thousands of children so that they can be ready for success in both school and life. And that is our mission. It's something that we're very dedicated to. It's something that right now feels like, it's a stretch to be talking about preparing children for school when school is closed, right? So I know in this new COVID reality, everything seems turned upside down. Even to some extent, our mission statement seems a little upside down right now.
Well, thank you for that background. So now we're going to go and talk a little bit about all the great work you have done in this last 6 weeks or so. So, can you tell us a little bit about what life was before COVID-19 arrived?
Yeah, so life was 100 classrooms. Many of them are on elementary school campuses throughout the Bay Area. And so, every day we'd have thousands of kids showing up, hundreds of teachers teaching them, and, providing everything from, delicious, nutritious meals to specialized services such as mental health consultation, early intervention services, and the like. And all of those things happen primarily in classrooms, right? And if it didn't happen in classrooms, it happened in people's homes. So we do home visiting. And the reality is on Friday the 13th, that all stopped, right? And for us, we know that children and adults, but especially young children, they learn through meaningful relationships. And the relationships that are created in our classrooms between children and teachers, and then between the children themselves, and then our teachers and their parents, that is the hub upon which we are successful. It's those relationships that create the learning opportunities that help children be ready for success. And so all of a sudden, that ability to relate in person went away. Mm-hmm. And so it completely turned upside down everything we do, and every way that we know how to do it, literally in a matter of days.
Right. So can you just tell us a little bit more about that, how everything changed after COVID?
Sure. So, it was that time period, I think we all remember, where we knew things were getting more and more serious, and we're just waiting for the sort of dreaded call to begin shutting services down. But we didn't know how it was going to happen, right? We didn't know if it would be public health officials, local public health officials that do it, if it would be the governor's office, if it would be um, schools, or where it would happen first. And where it happened first for us was with schools. So, it was, I think, that Thursday in the Bay Area, the 12th, where San Francisco Unified, one of the largest school districts in the Bay Area, said, we're shutting down. And you sort of knew at that point, given how large that district is, that there would be a domino effect. And in fact, the next morning, I started getting calls from superintendents where we have preschools on their campuses saying, okay, we're shutting down. And, we thought you'd like to know. And at that moment, we knew that we would have to follow suit because, when elementary school campuses are shutting down, you can't have the lone preschool classroom there still open and providing services. So it was at that moment that we knew we had to close and we needed to get the word out right away so parents weren't surprised that come Monday that we wouldn't be open anymore. So we did that and acted very quickly and was able to get word out to parents. At the same time, the moment you close is also the moment you figure out what are you going to do, because the idea of doing nothing was not in our vocabulary, if you will. So we knew right away we needed to provide families with meals, right? That they were going to need food, that they rely on us for 2, even 3 meals a day for their children. But the way we normally do meals, again, it's all relationship based, right? It's family style. So, you get a bowl of salad and you have a bowl of tacos or whatever, or sandwiches. And, we had to shift that to grab and go meals. So meals that we could both provide to families who could then take it home, but then also do it in a way that, allowed for physical distancing. So literally, we made the call to shut down Friday, and that Monday we were providing grab and go meals to families in regional hubs throughout our service area in the Bay Area. So that was the first thing that we did to start providing services in a very different way to families.
And can you talk a little bit about the biggest challenges for Kidango's families and staff since that happened?
Yeah, so that's the other thing we did the first week was we began to call everybody. We began to have conversations, email, whatever way that we could reach out to both our families and on all our staff. So that's thousands of phone calls, right, that are going on. We didn't have a name for them yet, but now we call the staff that are doing that, which is close to 100 staff, our virtual family advocates or virtual visitors, right? Because this isn't just a call to check in and say, hey, how are you doing? What do you need? That's important, and we did that. But it's also a call that is establishing and maintaining that relationship, which we find is incredibly valuable for both children and families. But the number one need that we heard initially from families was we need help filling out unemployment paperwork. So that told us 2 things. One is there isn't a huge need for childcare right now because all businesses are shutting down. And at this point, shelter in place had been put in place. It was only a few days after the schools shut down that happened in the Bay Area. And so sadly, many families lost their jobs. Then it became a matter of essential supplies. So food basics. So it was great that we're getting food out, but the grab and go meals weren't just the only food that they needed. Then, I think many of us know, and many of us in the childcare field know, things like diapers, wipes, formula for babies, supplies that, toilet paper that many were not able to get even if they could afford them.
Mm-hmm.
So we began immediately providing those kinds of supplies at our grab and go meal sites so that families could come and pick them up. And when we called them, we let them know, okay, this is available to you if you need it. And we would, we would buy games, we'd buy toys, we'd buy books. I mean, it quickly grew beyond the basics. But that's where it started.
Mm-hmm. And how are you working to protect the health and safety of the children and staff when at the reopened centers? I know it's challenging, but you guys have done a lot around that.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, a week after we closed, we began to reopen some of our centers for emergency childcare for essential workers. That came out of a partnership with the County of Santa Clara and First Five Santa Clara and Santa Clara County Office of Education and others. Basically we were opening up really for hospital staff.
Mm-hmm.
And we have a couple centers that are in hospitals, and then many centers that are around or nearby hospitals. So we looked and we called all our families and said, do you have a need for childcare? And then we worked with both the County of Santa Clara and the County of Alameda to say, all right, where would it be most advantageous to open those up? So we did that. And the first thing we knew is, because all of our staff, very, very fortunately, and I want to thank, the Governor Newsom, I want to thank the California Department of Education and Superintendent Tony Thurman and so many others who said, we're going to keep funding early childhood education in the middle of this closure, because it allowed us to continue to pay our staff, who are so deserving of that. At the same time, for us to have them come back and work in emergency childcare under what is obviously a much higher risk situation, we wanted to give them hazard pay. So we started figuring out how we could do that. We started fundraising right away for it. I want to give a shout out to the Morgan Family Foundation for donating $50,000 to help us do that. And basically teachers are making double. They're making to finally, honestly, it's sort of a dream within the nightmare to be able to pay teachers a professional wage, really for the first time, because as we know, early childhood educators are among the lowest paid teachers and are among the lowest wage earners in our society. So we did that, and then we had a lot of people step up and say, yeah, we want to do it. We're here for the kids. This is exciting, but we had to make sure that it was safe, safe as possible. And so that changed over time. We just started probably 10 days ago requiring masks in all of our classrooms, which is a whole thing, because obviously you talk about relationship-based, having a mask that hides all of your emotions and makes it difficult to talk is definitely not ideal. But we started with much higher levels of sanitizing everything in a classroom, to wellness checks for everyone that come in the morning, which includes taking people's temperatures, to making sure that we have what's called stable groups. So our group sizes are much smaller. They went from like a class of 24 to now a class of 10 or 12 children, and you have these different groups and they do not mix. So they don't go out on the playground together, and that sort of thing, so that we don't have any interaction, and we can keep physical distancing at least between the groups of kids that we have in a center. So those are some of the things we're doing. There are a lot more, but yeah, it's a very, very different feel now than your typical classroom.
Right. And can you talk a little bit about your reopening plans? What are you what are you planning to do for all your centers?
Yeah. So as we begin to see shelter in place being lifted, and here in the Bay Area, they have it in place through the end of May. We're now looking at, okay, how do we go from the 9 centers that we have open now to reopening all 55? So we have a plan that we're creating that will take us from June, if we're allowed, through July, so that come the beginning of the school year, we are open. But one of the big questions is, what kind of group sizes will be allowed. I think we can anticipate we're going to have to continue to do the deep cleaning. We're going to have to continue to do wear face masks, those kinds of things, and other physical distancing measures. But if it's required to go from a class size of 24 to 10, that's a lot of children that aren't going to get served.
Right.
So that's a big question that we have.
Right, and we have to wait and see, right, to see what happens and what we learn. Now, if you can talk a little bit about what Kidango is doing, so it's easier for children to learn at home, because we know, as you mentioned, a lot of kids are still at home. So if you can talk a little bit about what you guys are doing, because you're also supporting the families who are in.
So, that's another thing that we immediately started working on. The first week we were closed, we got families learning packets that look like this, that are both in English and Spanish. And these are, ways for families to play games with their children that support both language and literacy and math development. So that was like the first thing that we got out immediately, but we knew that wasn't going to be enough. The second thing we did was to create what we're calling Kidango at Home. And if you go onto our website, kidango.org, you'll see Kidango at Home and all of the virtual resources that we have for families up there. The next thing we did was to begin to provide instruction online. So we started with what you typically might see in a circle time, like a repeated read aloud, and we put videos up on our website, and then we started having teachers do live virtual circle times with their families, and so using Zoom. So we're all getting very familiar with various ways that we can communicate online. But that was sort of the next step, and getting everyone trained on how to do that and comfortable with doing it. And then last but not least, we also created these kits, which were giving to all 4,000 of our families. They include everything from a stuffed animal to books, to games, playing cards with math games, and the books are bilingual. And so, yes, are you my mother? Favorite for many. I want to give a huge shout out to the Bring Me Book Foundation. They literally donated 9,000 books to us, just like immediately. And so we've been able to get these books out and other learning materials out to families. We've already been able to do that to 2/3 of our families. Either they've come to the center to pick up themselves, or we've delivered it. Literally, our staff have delivered it to their homes. And now for the families that weren't able to do that, we're mailing the rest of them. So if you go into our large conference room, which fits like 70 people, you'll just see boxes and boxes and boxes and boxes of learning kits that are going to people's homes right now. And that is actually the main purpose of today and our Giving Tuesday ask, is to please help us to be able to provide these learning kits for all kids. We're doing it, but we need the funding to be able to make it work for us from a financial standpoint. So any help that anyone can do on that is much appreciated.
Well, that can lead us to our last question before we end. That is, how can people support Kidango? You already mentioned the kits. Is there anything else you can let people know how to support Kidango at this time?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the number one way is to go to our website, kidango.org, kidango.org, and go to our Donate Now page. And it talks about the different ways that donation will be used. But if you want to also just check out our whole website or go to the Kidango at Home section, you can really get, I think, a pretty good view on what we're doing for families and what it means to them. I can tell you, we've gotten so many heartwarming stories and videos from families. I mean, we have one family that took a video of their children unpacking the learning kit. It was incredible. And, you know, videos of families reading to their children at home, those kinds of activities. And it means a lot. It means a lot to families that don't necessarily have the kinds of learning materials at home that you really need right now. And so, you know, we've been able to give every family 3 books, but I can guarantee you 5 or 10 would be even better. And so just know that, you know, however much we can raise is going to go to families so that they can best support, you know, their children and not just get through this time, but hopefully to be able to thrive during this time and build some skills that they may not have had already around how to support their children's learning at home, which we know is always so important.
Right. Well, we have 2 more minutes. So is there anything else you would like to share? I know people have been posting some questions in the chat, and I'm sure you guys can maybe follow up after. But is there anything else that you would like to say or share before we end our time together?
Yes, and we will. And thank you for your questions. And we will be answering them. And I see a lot of familiar folks on this call. So thank you so much for tuning in. I do want to say, I guess the last thing I would say is, and I can see there's a lot of excitement around our, you know, ability to double teacher pay. You know, we don't want to have to go back to where, you know, we paid our teachers before. You know, this is Teacher Appreciation Week. And it shouldn't be that the teachers who teach the youngest children, it's their most significant time of development in their life. So you could arguably say, like, these teachers matter the most because they're teaching children when they're developing the most. I mean, that is a reality. And to see a great early childhood educator in action is to truly be in awe because it is not an easy job at all. It's something that requires a lot of energy and a lot of know-how. And the fact that, you know, today, if you get a college degree and you want to make the least amount of money, you become an early childhood educator. That's just wrong, right? So it's you know, I know that we're not going to be able to continue the hazard pay as we move on into the summer. But, you know, if there's something that we're going to miss from this crisis, it's that. And so I would just want to say again, thank you to all the teachers out there, and hope that someday we'll be able to meet that dream again of paying, you know, our early childhood educators a professional wage.
I agree.
Yeah, I know you do.
Well, our time is, we're done, but I want to thank you and thank everyone who joined today. And feel free to visit Kidango's website if you want to support, and they will follow up with your questions, and hope to see you all soon.
Thank you, Patricia.
Thank you. Bye.
All right, bye.